Welcome to the Criminal Imagination. I bring you new series. This series is not a tale of logic and reason. It is a descent into shadows, secrets and the crimes that refuse to die. We will uncover the forgotten roots of crime fiction, haunted mansions, unreliable confessions, spectral witnesses and guilty minds fractured by mirrors and blood. And through this, we will explore how fear, guilt, madness, and supernatural shaped the genre we believed we understood. This is the archive of the repressed. Welcome to Gothic Evidence, Dark Inheritance, a world where justice limps behind secrets, where madness wears a velvet coat, and the blood on the floor tells stories older than law or even time. We do not begin with order, we begin with collapse, with a tower crumbling in the dark, with bloodlines breaking under the weight of memory, with crimes that predate the criminal. We begin with ruin, not simply as an image cracked stone, ivy choked corridors, moonlit walls, but as an ontological condition, as a psychological inheritance, as the quiet doctrine of Gothic crime fiction whispered through generations of cursed lineages and haunted rooms. This is not the detective's terrain, no magnifying glass, no ticking watch, no comforting logic of deduction. This is the crime before evidence, the guilt before judgment, the sentence written in blood long before it is spoken aloud. To understand the birth of suspicion, we must not ask who committed the crime. We must ask what has already been broken. Our descent begins with the Castle of Otranto, 1764. Horace Walpole, eccentric, antiquarian, Member of Parliament, an architect of Strawberry Hill, the first Gothic revival home in England. Walpole didn't just write the Gothic, he lived it. He called his novel a Gothic story, and in doing so, he opened the crypt. At first glance, Otranto is a medieval fantasy, a castle, a prophecy, a villainous prince, a damsel in distress. But look closer, and the castle itself begins to breathe. A huge helmet 100 times more large than any cask ever made for human being lay on the ground. The sun is crushed beneath it, the first sign that the architecture itself is an executioner. Manfred, the usurping patriarch, is not a villain of desire. He is a man terrified of extinction, of a bloodline illegitimately claimed, of inheritance interrupted. Every action in Otranto emerges from that primal fear that the edifice of nobility is built on theft, that the legal order is merely a performance, that the walls, massive, ancient, sentient, will one day collapse under the weight of buried truths. The castle in Walpole is not a backdrop, it is a witness. It is structure as memory. Architecture becomes a haunted archive, the palimpsest of illegitimacy, prophecy, and doom. The Gothic here invents a terrifying premise. What if the setting remembers more than the character does? What if the past, literary, cannot be contained? But ruin in Walpole is still aesthetic, still romantic. To trace its moral decay, we must go further into the abyss, to the margins of empire, to a country familiar with spectral trauma, Ireland. Charles Robert Maturin, clergyman, nationalist, and mad genius, gives us Melmoth the Wanderer. If Walpole cracked the surface, Maturin split the soul. Here, crime is not familial but metaphysical, not bound to blood but to time, not to who you are but to what you cannot forget. Melmoth has sold his soul for time, centuries of it, time to wander, time to tempt others into damnation, time to find a substitute, a victim willing to take on the bargain. A being who had renounced virtue for knowledge, humanity for power, and peace for eternity of horror. Each story he witnesses is a nested confession. A woman entombed in a convent against her will. A man buried alive beneath the Inquisition sentence. A scholar who discovers too much and is driven mad. The structure of Melmoth is itself Gothic. Fragments within fragments. Testimonies barely held together by a frame narrative that refuses coherence. Madness is not the exception, it is the medium. And guilt, it lingers. This is a world where the act of witnessing is itself corruptive, where the mind splits not under the crime itself but under its reverberation, where the very possibility of a rational world order, judgment, trial, confession, is exposed as absurd. Maturin tells us there is no court when the soul is the crime scene. But if Walpole gave us the Gothic stage and Maturin gave us the Gothic torment, then Beckford, William Beckford, gave us the Gothic indulgence. Vathek is a tale drenched in hedonism, Orientalism, and spectral terror. Beckford himself, the product of obscene wealth, scandalized Victorian society with this bizarre, opulent, and dangerous fable. Vathek, the Caliph, desires forbidden knowledge. He builds towers, communes with demons, murders innocent lives, all in pursuit of power so vast it exists outside divine law. The Gothic here becomes ethereal. The crime is epistemological. To know too much, pierce the veil of the sacred. To demand secrets from gods and devils alike. He caused the streets of Samara to flow with blood. And for this, he is granted his wish. The halls of Eblis, a vast silent palace filled with damned souls wandering in eternal flame. But Vathek is not punished by justice, he is punished by revelation. He seeks the truth, he sees too much, and he is eternally conscious of his guilt. Here, ruin is not architecture, it is self-knowledge. It is the moment in which your own soul becomes visible to you, and you can no longer look away. And from here, we see the silhouette of a genre that does not care about crime as breach, but crime as inheritance. In these early Gothic novels, we find the seeds of crime fiction's unconscious. Long before the police procedural, long before the detective and the clue and the final deduction, these novels give us something far more primal. The cursed family, the guilty landscape, and the haunted mind. Above all, it gives us the notion that crime is not committed but uncovered. That it is not committed by an individual but by a system, a dynasty, a bloodline, a nation. The early Gothic is preoccupied not with who did it, but with who must bear it. Let us be precise. When we speak of ruin, we do not mean only stone. We mean memory under siege. We mean dynastic entropy. We mean the psychological architecture of trauma. In Walpole's crumbling castle, we see the legitimacy of aristocracy fall apart. In Maturin's infinite testimonies, we see the self eroded by history, by silence, by the church, by exile. In Beckford's gleaming tower, we see the empire punished by its own desire to know and control everything. The Gothic does not ask whether something is real. It asks, what is the cost of pretending it isn't? It is this condition of anxious inheritance that would shape later crime fiction. The haunted manor becomes the crime scene. The family tree becomes the suspect list. The mansion's locked door becomes the first clue. And suspicion itself becomes the primary atmosphere of the genre. Not because of the evidence, but because of the repressed. This then is where we begin, not with clarity, not with reason, but with ruin. We begin at the moment before the crime is even recognized as crime, when it is still cloaked in myth, in title, in blood, when guilt seeps into the stone and madness is not a deviation but an inheritance. Walpole, Maturin, Beckford. Three men writing not about the crimes they committed, but about the empires they inherited. Their pages are wheels, their narrators are unreliable. Their architecture, their castles, catacombs, palaces is always on the verge of collapse. Because it is the Gothic, the setting is not neutral. It is never just a location. It is mind, it is memory, it is evidence, and it remembers everything. So, as we close this first descent, let us ask, what ruins surround us now? What crimes remain unread? What forgotten structures of power still whisper through our cultural memory? And if every ruin is a memory made visible, then what does our fascination with Gothic decay reveal about the truths we are still unwilling to confront? We do not yet have the detective, but we have the clue. It is carved into stone. It is muttered in the confessional. It flickers in a mirror no one has ever dared to clean. It is everywhere. And so you must wait until next time. Until then, trust no house that has outlived its owners. It remembers what they forgot, and it will not forgive.